My maniacs. So this is going to be my last trials feedback video because I'm just kind of tired of covering the topic and I just don't feel like talking about it anymore. I'm over it. It's whatever, you know. Bungie's going to do what they're going to do regardless of how a lot of us feel about it. They have their own perception of what trials is, and until they hit that alignment with what they're doing with matchmaking, it's going to continue being this way with constant changes. Now, I do think they will nail down a certain type of matchmaking by the time Witch Queen rolls around. I do think they're trying to iron out things, but I do also believe that it has been pretty detrimental for the resurgence of trials and the overall faith that the player base has in Bungie. I don't get me wrong, I do think players will come back to trials once it's all ironed out and stuff, but it is not exactly fun being a guinea pig for matchmaking on a consistent basis when you're just trying to experience something that you've paid for, that you are a consumer for. So in this video, I'm going to be chopping up a rant I had on stream yesterday about the matchmaking changes, the most recent, which is now a win-based matchmaking system, and just the overall perception of what Trials is now, because I don't particularly know what Bungie views Trials as. You know, these matchmaking changes with the flawless pool and now the win-based pool has basically made it so that you cannot really play with whom you want to play with. Now, is this a way for them to kind of remove carries from the equation? It might be. I'm not sure. I don't think carries are as detrimental as people make them out to be. Now, I do think changing the fundamentals of Trials is the way to go. I don't think it needs to be what it is currently. I think it needs to evolve from its original form, which is you lose a game and you're not able to go to the lighthouse. I think it should just be a stepping stone in PvP that leads you into a revamped comp. This system might actually work very well in a revamped comp playlist. Anyway, I'm going to just chop up the rant I had and let me know your guys' thoughts in the comment section below. If you guys agree, if you don't agree, whatever. I'm just putting it out in the ethos. I don't particularly care. It's not like make or break for me. I'll still play the game every once in a while, but if I'm not having fun, I'm not going to play. I'm going to go play something else. I'm going to go play some Final Fantasy XIV. I'm going to go do other things. But I do want to see Trials flourish. I don't want to see it just be a slow leak of the population. I want it to be a growing population. I want people to be introduced into PvP and fall in love with it. Now, it's not going to happen for everybody, but I do want people to enjoy PvP because I do think it is very fun. But I digress. Here's the rant. Let me know what you guys think. And as always, so long and good night. Matchmaking changes. I mean, okay, so in regards to the matchmaking stuff, like, I'm not mad or like, I guess I'm not mad. I don't really give a shit. I'm not like anti-matchmaking changes or anything like that. I just think they're misplaced. I don't think there's a need for it in Trials. I don't think Trials I don't think it's a good mode. I don't think the old way of Trials was good. I think its issue is it impedes upon itself, right? The whole premise of it is supposed to be endgame loot for PvP players based on the amount of time you put in. Right? I'm pretty sure that's what Trials is. Like, it's endgame, it's a way for PvP players to get endgame materials and loot. It's not competitive. It's not ultra competitive. It's competitive in some forms, but it's not end game PvP. The top 0.01% players in the game, the top Trials players, the top not Trials players, but the top sweat players that play Trials, that do it on the weekends for money and for views, they don't give a shit. They don't give a shit about the Trials loot. They don't give a shit about going flawless. They don't give a shit about who they really match outside of what it does to their carries. That's the only thing that you're going to see a lot of pushback from streamers and stuff that do carries and chirping, because this change makes it harder to do that. And it does make it harder to play with your friends, because now instead of the flawless pool or whatever and people resetting, now you have to ask, how many wins do you have over the weekend, right? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to implement something like that into a system that essentially gives everybody the same exact things if they go to the lighthouse. It doesn't make sense. Why would I want to sit there and bang my head? Like, so let's take carries out of the whole equation, right? Let's just say it's just me trying to game with some friends on the weekend. Now you've only given me incentive to run a card later in the week. Like, not during the sweatiest time, which would be now until, you know, probably Saturday, Sunday. If I just wait it out, now it's like I'm gonna have an easier time on the weekend. I'm gonna have an easier but you don't give me incentive to keep playing, because now if I keep winning, my games just keep getting progressively harder. When it's not Trials is not that. Trials is not about, like, it's about just getting loot. It's about endgame loot for PvP players, endgame materials. It's not, there's no exclusivity, there's no prestige to Trials. It's been bastardized and abused by streamers. There's nothing exclusive, there's nothing, adept weapons, I mean, everybody gets them now. You have, like, freelance and all that stuff. So why are we putting these barriers? There's no prestige in it. Top PvP players don't take prestige in Trials. They don't go around like, oh, look at my Trials KD, look how good of a Trials player I am. Like, and this is like, people need to understand that, like, from the bottom and the mid and the above average, at a certain point, you're just playing Trials and you're finding ways to make it harder by doing carries, or you're trying to find ways to monetize it and grow your social media and cloud and all that shit, so you're doing carries. The change, I think, okay, so I do think that there is a place for that matchmaking system, and it is in ranked. You just develop a ranked system, and then you put that system into a ranked system where you're matching people of the same skill, the same wins, the same tier as you. It makes sense. That makes sense, because now you're putting a leaderboard system in the game, and it ties all together. That makes sense to me. This in Trials is not that. Trials needs you got to get rid of the flawless, like, flawed or flawless card thing. It's silly. It's so silly at this point. It's such an outdated system. At first, yeah, it was great in Destiny 1 because it was new, it was different, but it hasn't evolved. It hasn't evolved since it came out. You can't matchmake around people getting stomped or people being bored and stomping and all that stuff. The only way you can keep the playlist population high is if you keep introducing new weapons and stuff and things for people to chase, or you just make it an experience where you can just kind of sit in there all weekend whenever you want and not really have to worry about, oh, do I need to win? Oh, the high stress, tension, all that shit. Like, if you lose, you lose. It sucks. You want to win, but at the end of the day, if you don't lose, you didn't just waste 45 minutes to an hour. You got error coded, you ran into a stack team, all these unfortunate things that happen, or somebody leaves on your fire team, or they get disconnected and it ruins your card, right? You don't need any of that with the system where you just get rid of the flawed card. Like, you just have a card that doesn't give a shit if you lose 100 games. You just have a one that says, okay, you got 7 wins, you go to the lighthouse, you get a dip gear. I don't care. I don't know who cares about that stuff. Who cares if people that sit there and play 100 games, if somebody plays 100 games, they should go to a lighthouse. And if they lose, if you play 100 games and you only win 7 of those games, you deserve to go to the lighthouse. I'm sorry. Like, that's some fucking perseverance to the nth degree. Like, I just don't get it. Like, respect the player base's time. Now you're saying, essentially what this matchmaking system is saying is like, oh, the more you play, the more wins you get. Well, you're gonna get a harder fucking experience. Could you imagine every time you did a VOG and you completed it, and could you just imagine every time you did a VOG and completed it, every single week following that, or every time you did it again throughout the week, it gets harder and harder. You hit for less damage. There's overload, there's more overloads, there's more unstoppables, but you still get the same shit. As the same as somebody that did it one time this week, right? Yeah, but if it's rewarded, but you have to think about it like this: it's not rewarded. That's what I'm trying to say. If there was an opt, that's what like the time loss shit is, right? So yeah, if you can opt in for it and you get more rewards, but right now you're not getting more rewards for having win-based, skill-based matchmaking. There's nothing more rewarding. All it is artificial. I don't even know what you would even call it. It's an attempt to make more competitive games, which I get if it was in a competitive playlist. Trials is not endgame competitive. I'm sorry, it's not. It's not prestigious. If it was prestigious, then you would see every fucking Trials streamer, every person, Grenader Jake, running 3-stacked all weekend long and trying to pub stomp and be the best Trials player in the world. If there was something prestigious behind it. Do you see that? No, because it's not. Because it's monetized. It's been monetized by streamers, and it's been monetized by people that did recovs, and it's a way of growth, not and monetize in a sense that you can grow your social media platforms. You can do all this different stuff with it, right? The prestige is gone. It was gone when trials carries became a thing. There's no such thing as prestige with trials. That's a fallacy that people keep leaning on. Even trial streamers, I'm like, just say what it is. You guys don't want these things because it does hurt your service, right? And the system I'm implementing, it does the same thing what they're trying to do right now, which is almost feels like they're trying to eliminate carries and the Twitch directory. Because now I'm not saying it's definitely going to do that, but if it keeps making it harder for Twitch streamers to carry people, and they have to keep running stack, and then you already banned recoveries, so now you get banned for doing that. So now, now all you're doing is just doubling up on things that are going to make it harder the more you play. It kind of just boggles my mind, right? Like, I've never heard of a company or a system that punishes you for getting better at it and for playing it longer. Does that make sense from a business aspect at all? It's incentivizing you not to play more. It's incentivizing you get your falls done and be done. Like, get a few wins in, play a couple cards, but don't play all weekend, you know? Don't play all weekend.